So I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'd like to do just one thing before we go too much further. How many people are from the Vancouver Island here today? Hands up high, Vancouver Island. Wow, there you go. Well represented. How many people are from the Lower Mainland? There's another good representation. Okanagan? Oh, look at that. Yes. Oh, way to go. All right. North of Williams Lake. Way to go. Right up there. Where are you? What part? Where are you from? Hazelton. Way to go. Anybody else north of Williams Lake? Beautiful country up there. Okay. All right. Well, this is Silver Hills Guest House, and we're, like Betty said, we're in Lumbee, which is about 4 hours. I can tell you that because I came here this morning. So it's about 4 hours drive. It's a beautiful drive. And we have 12 guest bedrooms. We started in 1984. So next year it'll be 40 years ago. That's when it started. This building was our own home when we first started it. And then we started building this home, and it's kept on building. But in 1984 is when it started. And when we first started, we were just one little house and very little nature trails. Now we have 90 acres, and we have nature trails all over the acreage. And we built it around a spa model. In other words, what we do is we have 5 rooms where we can do massage, hydrotherapy, we can do wraps. We've got 2 infrared saunas, steam room, hot tub. And so people like spa, and so, they're coming for the spa, but we also want to teach them health, and that's our main reason, is that we can teach them how to be healthy and teach them, the health plan. I was thinking, well, how to introduce this whole idea, and what came to mind is this. Some of us, how many of you remember Dr. Deal? Does anybody remember Dr. Deal? Hands up high. Okay, there we go. So Dr. Hans Deal came into the Okanagan, and we were just starting the guest house, which was just perfect, and I'll explain that to you a little bit later. But he came into the Okanagan, and he ran a program in Kelowna. And there was a man that came to his program. His name was Albert. Albert had diabetes. Albert was a pastor. He was the pastor of the United Church. It had 700 members that were attending and 700 members that were watching his televised sermons. And Dr. Dio said to me, I can't stay here, Phil. The program is over. Could you go and visit Albert? So I walked into, made an arrangement, got into Albert's office and started talking to him. And first of all, the first thing you know about Albert is he's got a tremendous sense of humor. He's very easy to talk to. Fact is, we had him speak at our church after we got to know him for a while, and he stood up in front of our church and he says, when we all get to heaven, we're all going to be united. So, he was a united pastor. But anyway, so he explained to me his problem. When he got up to speak, he would get jittery, nervous, and that was not his style. And when he was doing a funeral and there was an open grave there, he would be losing his balance, and he was afraid he was going to fall into the pit. And he thought it would not only be painful for him, but it would probably ruin the whole idea of the funeral, right? I mean, if the pastor falls into the pit. And so he said this to me very plaintively. He said, "Can you help me?" And I want you to think about that this morning, because this is what we're here for. Right? This is what we're here for. He said to me, "Can you help me?" And I said to him, "Yes, we can help you." He was diabetic, overweight. I said, "Sure, come on." So he came to the guest house, and he had to leave a day early. And as he was leaving, if you know Albert, you'd have a good time with him. He had a fabulous time. Anyway, he said, I want to show you what Silver Hills did for me. And as he was standing there, he reached into his shirt and he pulled out a pillow out of his front of his pants, and his pants started falling off as he was running away. He says, "That's what Silver Hills did for me." Well, he sent his wife, who was his associate pastor, and then he sent his son-in-law, and that's the one that really touched my heart, because his son-in-law had type 1 diabetes. And Albert had learned enough while he was at Silver Hills Guest House that he knew his son-in-law needed to make some changes. He told me his son-in-law was using the needle, insulin, to control his diabetes. And so he would go to the pub and he would take 2 beers and he was chug-a-lugging them, trying to beat other guys at how much they could drink, how fast they could drink, and then he would use the needle. And I explained to him that if you do it that way, that you'll shorten your lifespan and your latter years will be really ugly. So, so he was convinced. So he sent his son. Albert stood up in front of his church on Sunday mornings and he would tell his church about the Adventist lifestyle. And his church board came to him and they said, Albert, you've got to quit talking about the Adventist lifestyle. They were trying to discipline him. You can't talk about the Adventist lifestyle. I mean, that's just advertising another whole organization in your church. So Albert's the kind of guy that stood up in front of his congregation, and he said to his congregation, now, my board has met with me, and they've told me to stop talking about the Adventist lifestyle. How many here want me to continue talking about the Adventist lifestyle? The church all puts up their hand. He says, I hope the board's here and watching. We had a fellow that came up from down in Sacramento, 325 pounds. The first walk I took him on, he walked half a mile. He leaned up against the van and he went, oh, man, I'm exhausted. We were having a 3-week program at the time. At the end of the 3 weeks, he walked 17 miles nonstop. Now, I have to qualify that. He weighed 325 pounds. He was an ex-Marine. He had really a well-developed physique, physical body. He was just overweight. And we were able to walk him. Anyway, he came back a number of times. When he went back the first time, I got to tell you this story. When he went home the first time, he kept contacting me and he told me he lost 65 pounds in that year, first time. And then he came back. And when he came back, he brought his mother. And he walked in and he says, look, all I did is add back the chicken and the fish. That's all I did. I just added back the chicken and the fish. He put all my weight back on. And his mom says, yeah, but Ronnie, when we stopped for lunch, you ordered the seafood section. You had the halibut, the sole, the crab, and everything, all the fixings. And then she said, and you ordered a tub of chicken wings. He says, yeah, but you ate half of them. Anyway, Ronnie went back through it and he lost his weight again. He did really well. He had to get brushed up on that. Anyway, I got a phone call, and the fellow's name was Don that called me, and he left his message. He was at the prayer retreat in Kelowna. And so I called up the prayer retreat, and I said, I need to talk to Don. He said, oh, he's out mowing the lawn. I thought, oh, well, they've got the gardener. Obviously, the gardeners, I've talked to Don. So he called me back. I missed his call. I called him back, and he says, oh, he's out walking with some of the people here. So he does like we do. He mows the lawn, and then he walks with people. Well, finally, we connected. Well, it was Father Don. And Father Don was in charge of the prayer retreat. And he had very, very serious heart disease. In fact, they didn't think he was going to live. He was 74. He was in such tough shape, he was having a hard time getting around. And so I said, come to the guest house, come on. And Father Don and I walked every day for 2 weeks. We went out walking together. When he went home to his prayer retreat, they thought that he had been to Benny Hinn. They had done a laying on of hands. He was scooting upstairs. He was doing things that he hadn't been able to do before. And he sent his 2 cooks from his prayer retreat to the guest house to learn how to cook so that they could prepare food for this Catholic prayer retreat. Well, the reason why I'm telling you these stories is because we have something. And it's not our fault, and we didn't invent it. We were blessed by it. The early church leaders of the Adventist church, they didn't have it. If you want to read the history, they didn't have it. In the 1860s, the leadership, all of the leaders of our church ended up so sick that they could hardly function. The church was almost dead. It could hardly function at all. In Fact is, James White went to a place like Silver Hills in upstate New York called Dansville, and they actually started to recondition him, but they were missing one of the key parts of the whole thing. And when he came home, Ellen White went to her knees and she pled with God, what is he missing? What's wrong? He's not getting better. What is it? You know what the angel told her? He has to walk every day. He has to walk every day. You know, this church has got a blessing. We've got been blessed. And the blessing is just, you know, it's simple. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, and trust in divine power. The Lord has given us a formula for helping people get well. And every church, these churches have fabulous buildings, pastors. Every church, every person in your community needs what you have. I've had people tell me, you know what? They opened up a gym down there. You know, they're teaching our Adventist message. They opened a vegetarian restaurant over there, teaching our Adventist message. Well, they got part of it. You have all of it. There's a difference. There's a huge difference when you're working with people. If you leave out one of these, you're going to have a problem. James White was leaving out one. He had learned all these other ones, but he was leaving out one consistently. You know what it was? He wasn't walking every day. And he couldn't get better. He just could not get well. And so you know, you have something. And there's people that come to our guest house from all different religions. When Ronnie went back to Sacramento, he was a Mormon. You know what? The fellow who was in charge of their stake, they have, it would be similar to our conference, but they call it their stake. You know what the man that was in charge of their stake said to Ronnie? Will you please quit talking about the Adventist lifestyle? He goes there, he's so bubbling over with, you know, this is what the Adventists taught me, you know, we should be doing this and this and this. Quit talking about the Adventist lifestyle. We have something. And thank the Lord we have it. Okay, we're going to spend some time. I'll just take a couple more slides to show you Silver Hills if I can. There you go. This is what you look at from the hot tub out in front of the guest house, the nature trails. Isn't that a fabulous lookout? You just can't see what they're looking out at. Anyway, you're like at a precipice looking over the whole valley. But anyway, here we go. Then we do facials, we do hot stone massage, we have an infrared sauna, we have, and then you see that we're serving. We try to decorate the plate, make them enjoy it, make them love their food. Really enjoy that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk to you about sinusitis. And the reason why I picked sinusitis is because it reveals what we do. All right? It shows us what this whole thing is all about. And the other reason is because so many people have it. There's your sinuses right there. If a person, how would you know if a person has a headache or a sinus headache? How could you tell the difference? If a person came to you and said, I got such a headache. How could you tell whether it was a headache or a sinus headache? Well, have them just do this. If they tip forward, the pressure should increase. That'll be a sinus headache. That means their sinuses are involved, right? And you see where they're located right there. And you know why they're there? You know why we have sinuses? If you look it up, they don't know why we have sinuses, except for your voice. You know yourself, if they get plugged, your voice just gets right off. So we're not really positive, but the one thing they know is that it does affect your voice. So here we have 90%, that's the reason why I picked sinusitis as the kind of the way of looking at it. 90% of adults have had it or have it, right? Sinusitis. 12% of them are reoccurring. We have allergies, viral, bacterial, and fungal. We have different reasons for it being there, but most people you've all experienced what we're talking about. All right. So it takes if they've had it from 7 to 10 days, it's usually a flu or viral. It's just a short period of time. It's viral, and then the body gets the immune system going and it gets rid of it. It persists. It could be bacterial, and then you have we had in our last session, 2 of our guests. We have cottonwood trees, and their nose is stuffed up. Their eyes are itchy. They have an they're having an allergic reaction. Just in case I forget, the thing for that one, the seasonal one, is mullein. We have it growing on our property. Whenever we run a cat over the field, and right after that, what comes up is mullein. And a mullein is a kind of a light green leaf, fuzzy leaf, fairly large leaf, and it has a single spire with a yellow flower on the top of it. And if you take the leaves, you can buy mullein in health food stores. You can buy it in herb stores and stuff like that. You can pick it. If you can't pick it, you can buy it. What I have the person do is to take enough to make 4 cups, and if they're having an allergic response, then I would have them drink it a quart of it a day. Just use it for their water, and it's amazing. They will. We had a lady that came from Winnipeg, and she just couldn't believe it. With 2 days, she says it's gone. It's gone. What this itchiness and the sinus, the dripping in the nose and everything like that. Just mullein plant. What I use is a teaspoon per cup if it's the dry. If it's the wet or the fresh, then I'll use more than that. But otherwise, just a teaspoon per cup. And so you have 4 teaspoons. You bring water to the boil. Once it's brought to the boil, you throw in 3 or 4 teaspoons. Let it steep for 15 minutes. Strain it, and then just drink that. And you can put something in it to make taste better. If you want to put mint or something else, if the person says it doesn't have a bad taste actually. It's quite easy to take. Okay, so sinusitis we have nasal congestion, facial pain, nighttime coughing, what's general malaise mean? What does it mean to have malaise? What's that? You just feel off. You don't feel like yourself. People say, I don't feel like myself. Constant blowing and wiping in the nose. And this next one is one not to be overlooked. I have had many people come with a lung complaint. They'll say, my lungs are bothering me. I got a lung problem. I got something wrong with my lung. My first question is, do you have postnasal drip? Because frequently they have postnasal drip, and if they have postnasal drip, then it gets into their lung, and they got breathing problems, they got lung problems, and you're not going to get rid of that lung problem, even if you're going to do fomentations. That will help. I can show you how to do fomentations, but you're better off to start, if they've got postnasal drip, then you're going to work with the sinusitis. It's just their nose is running down the back of their throat and dripping right into their lung. Okay, so that's causing that problem. And then you see dizziness when bending forward. That's one of the characteristics. In pain, impaired sinus drainage, cheek pain above the eyes, pain between the eyes, or cough and sore throat. These are all some of the symptoms. Well, what do we do for it? Well, the favorite thing that we would do is what we call the neti pot. How many of you are familiar with the neti pot? Anyone here? A couple of you? Okay, let me explain it to you. Here it is right here. I have a little plastic one here. You can get them in almost any drugstore, health food store. Most of these places have them. What I use is a pint of water, half a teaspoon of salt. I think it should be there on your list. I think it may be there. Is it on that sheet? I'm not sure. Does it tell you exactly how much it is? Yeah, what is it? What was the formula? 1 pint and 1 teaspoon? Yeah, okay. So you do that. And you're supposed to boil the water first. Why would you boil the water first? There may be bacteria in your water. You don't want to add bacteria right into your nose. So you boil the water first, let it cool down, make sure it's cool, add your salt, mix it up. And then using the neti pot isn't what you think. Like I have many people, I'd show them that and they try to snuff it up. You don't want to snuff it up. That's not what you do is you put the tip in your nose and you tip your head forward and down, just like this. What it'll do is the water will run up and run right out of your nostril. And you do that a couple times, then blow your nose and then do it again. And it'll clean, it's just like irrigating the nose with salt water. Now, if I have a person with reoccurring sinusitis, this is something that's going ongoing, it's not seasonal allergies. It could be something else. What I get them to do is use a pinch of garlic in that. Now, when I say a pinch of garlic, how much garlic is that? What's a pinch of garlic? How much is it? When you take your finger and you go into the powdered garlic and you pinch it, that's a pinch of garlic. Not a half a teaspoon. I've had people put a half a teaspoon. They come back to me, oh, my nose is burning. It's just a pinch of garlic is just what it says. You put your fingers in, you pinch the garlic. What you got between your fingers, that's what it is. It's just a little bit. But it is an antibacterial. And because of its antibacterial qualities, if the person's got a bacteria, you know why bacteria lives in your nose? Because your nose is just 1 degree cooler than the inside of your body. So it has that 1 degree cooler, that bacteria can live in there. Can't live inside your body, but it can live in your nose and can cause all that kind of problem. And so that a little tiny bit of garlic will actually just make the difference for that person, okay? All right. Now, let me show you the next one here. So here we have the benefits of garlic. Lowers blood pressure, lowers blood cholesterol, good for the heart, blood vessels, fends off respiratory infections, urinary tract, kills Candida albicans. Okay, so these are all good things. It also works very well, like I said, on topically if you're using it on the nose. There's a fellow that those of you who have heard of him, Dr. Lau, and you can look him up. He's got a book, Garlic and You. He did all of his experiments in Loma Linda University Hospital. He was all peer-reviewed stuff, and so he did garlic on all kinds of things. He said if you have a person that's got upper respiratory can be your nose, your throat, and upper lung. You can have, if you have that kind of problem, he recommended 2 capsules of Kyolic 3 times a day with each meal. 2 with each meal, 3 times a day. Kyolic. Kyolic is an interesting product because what it is it's garlic. The Japanese invented it. And what they did is they took garlic and they fermented it like you would do sauerkraut. And what it did is it got rid of everything but the most important part of the garlic. So it got rid of the odor, and all you have is the allicin, the part that you need. That's the medicinal part of it. The neat thing about Kyolic, and I like what this one doctor said, the reason why Kyolic is so much better is because this company only makes Kyolic. Like you'll run across some companies that make all kinds of stuff. But if you only make one product, you got to make it right because that's your bread and butter. You got to do a good job. And so they only make Kyolic. And so it's well made, which is really, really important if you're taking it. But Dr. Lau, if you look at his book, he says if you take a person with upper respiratory, we have lots of guests that have a problem with upper respiratory. If you take Kyolic, 2 at each meal, 3 times a day, you will cut your upper respiratory problem in half, the length of time that you have it. That was his thinking. He also does a lot. In his book, he talks about the studies they did in Loma Linda University and things like cancer. So, I mean, he did a tremendous amount of work, Dr. Lau. Good book. I recommend it to everyone. And he basically shows you the value of using garlic in all different ways. Okay, so it's really well, not just for sinusitis. Okay, now we're going to go into hot compresses, all right? So you could take a person and you can put basin of hot water and do hot compresses over top of the forehead, across the front of the nose like this, and it will soften up whatever's plugging that up, loosen it up, have so the person can expel it. You know, that's basically what you're after. You can also have a person take a towel, have a boiling pot of water. You may have done this as a child, and you hang a towel over your head, and you inhale the steam that comes in, and that steam will, or not the steam, but the vapor. The steam would actually burn you, but the vapor, you can inhale it, and that will also loosen up whatever has to be expelled and makes it easier for the person to breathe. There's one warning. When I see things like that, I'm reminded of this person that phoned me up, and they told me they had taken a really, really hot bath. And they, when they were taking their bath, when they got done the bath, they stood up, and they were lightheaded, and they fell over, and they hit their head on the spout coming out of the tap, and they knocked it right off. Now you can imagine that when they did that, they broke the bathtub, and they hurt their head. And instead of being a positive experience, it was a negative experience. In other words, all they could remember from a hot bath is that they wrecked their tub. When you've got a towel over your head and you're breathing moisture coming from a pot of boiling water, you're going to be lightheaded. You're going to be, not yourself. And with the towel hanging over a hot pot, you back away, you could pull the pot of water on yourself. You see what I'm saying? So when you're doing hydrotherapy or some kind of treatment, be careful. Watch what you're doing. Have somebody assist you. Don't do something that would be dangerous. Like be careful because you don't. The end result you don't want, or if you're doing it with somebody else, be cautious. The end result you want the person to go away better, not saying, "Wow, I would never do that again, right? So be careful. So if the person's doing that with their head. Now, I'm going to tell you about a doctor that taught me this. And he told me, he says, if you get an upper respiratory, what he suggested for me to do is this. You take a T-shirt and you tear the arms off, right? And you cut it so you're just covering your lungs, right, like that, right? And you dip this in cold water. And then you wring it out so it doesn't drip, right? So it's wet and cold, and then you put it on. And then you put over top of it a nice, tight-fitting sweater. Put on a nice sweater that fits tight. You don't want a baggy one. You want a nice, tight-fitting sweater. And then you go to bed. So I had done a series of lectures up at Port Hardy. And when I started the lecture series, it was a weekend series, I had a sore throat. And by the end of the weekend, my throat was bleeding. Because I wanted to, they had asked me to do this series. I wanted to carry out the series. And so I was doing the series, but at the same time, my throat was so sore, it ended up bleeding at the end of it. And it lasted quite a while after that. So then, years later, I got a call to go over to Campbell River. And so 4 hours in Campbell River Sabbath morning, 4 hours in Courtenay Sunday afternoon, Sabbath afternoon, Sunday morning in Courtenay. And when I flew over there, I same thing, got a sore throat. And I thought, boy, 8 hours, look, this is going to be a wreck. I remembered what this doctor told me to do. And so I did. I dipped it. I took a T-shirt, ripped the arms off, dipped it in cold water, put a sweater on. Next morning, I lectured for 4 hours. Next day, I lectured for 4 hours. No problem at all. It was gone. That was gone that quickly, overnight, just gone. Okay. So that doctor that taught me that was Dr. Charles Thomas. Anybody know Dr. Charles Thomas? Met him? Heard of him? Fabulous fellow, hydrotherapist. He was just absolutely phenomenal. He was running a program down in California. I'm trying to think of where it was. But anyway, he was a terrific program. But he was the one that told me this. This is called a heating compress. And so what's actually happening when you put the cold on, of course, what your body is going to do, it's going to bring blood to the surface, then it's going to send it away, then it's going to bring blood to the surface, and it's going to send it away, and it's going to increase the blood flow in your upper respiratory all night long. And that's exactly what you want to do. If you're fighting something, what happens is if our circulation is reduced or congested, if your feet or hands get cold, quite often people will come and they got cold, predominantly cold feet, that means your lungs are congested. That's just as bad as not having enough blood flow there because the blood's not moving very rapidly. And that one of the things that cold feet is an indication that you've got somewhere in your body that you've got congestion. If you're a lady, it could be your brain, lungs, uterus, or bladder. If it's your brain, you got headaches. If it's your lungs, you got upper respiratory problems. If you have it in your bladder, you have reoccurring bladder infections. If you got it in the uterus, you have female health problems. You ask a person that's got reoccurring bladder infections, how are your feet? They'll tell you they're like ice. I can't get them warm. That tells you right away what you have to do. You have to put their feet in hot water. Get their feet in hot water. That will start to remove the congestion. What you've got is congestion. And when I'm coming down with a sore throat, I'm either got cold feet and I've got congestion, or I've got a bug or something like that that's getting into my lung. And what I need is all the white blood cells I can get. So I need to increase the circulation. That's what this does. It increases the circulation, the blood flow, without any effort. I'm laying in bed and it's doing it for me. Now, I remember one time I took one of our health guests to the hospital. I forget what it was the person had, but I do remember the experience at the hospital because the nurse that was working on me on the lady said, "Oh, I've got a sore throat." And I said to her, "Well, why don't you put a heating compress on your neck?" And so a sore throat, this is again dealing with upper respiratory, why don't you put a heating compress on your neck, which is simply a piece of cotton like this. This happens to be a piece of old sheeting that's been cleaned. And then you put this on, cold water, take a piece of wool, wrap it around like this, put it on like that, pin it in place. I'm not going to be able to do it with the microphone here, but like that, pin it in place and go to bed. And what is the same thing, what's going to happen, it's called a heating compress, because what it does is it heats up. But it starts off by the cold, and then the blood comes in, and the cold, and the blood comes in, and eventually it heats up the area, and you have much better circulation. So she turned to the doctor, and she says, will that work? What do you think he said? Yeah, it will. He says, that'll work for sure. The doctor was telling his nurse that a heating compress would work if you put it around your neck, right? It's something very simple, but we all, cold weather, we tend to have problems that take place that cause sore throats, okay? All right. There's another thing. Let me just see, make sure I'm not doing, excuse me. Okay, steam inhalation, I talked to you about that. All right, let's talk to you about this one. How many of you have heard of Uchi Pines? Anybody heard of Uchi Pines? Okay, high, hands up high, real high, okay. So I went down to Uchi Pines and was able to be there for 3 weeks. And I asked Dr. Thrash, if you had one hydrotherapy treatment, only one hydrotherapy treatment, what would it be? You know what she told me? Hot foot bath. Number one. For everything, hot foot bath. Well, you can read it here. It can be used to reduce fever and all the combat cold, headache, congestion. Okay, so here it is. This is a little bit short. It's okay. It'll work. I'd rather have something a little higher, so that I can get a little bit up the calf. Okay, so what's going on here? So I put the person's feet in hot water, and the blood is going to come. You're going to see the color change. You're going to see the blood come into the feet, and it's going to become engorged. Blood's going to be right there. Now, here's what she said. If you have an inflammation anywhere in the body, if you have an itis, diverticulitis, colitis, sinusitis, right? If you have any one of those itises, arthritis, and you put the person's feet in hot water, guess what? The first blood that goes to the feet is the place where it's congested, the inflammation. That's the first place that gives up the blood. So any one of those, that's why she said it's her favorite treatment. Any one of those, you got a person who got colitis. Well, you can't, you don't know, you can't, but you could put their feet in hot water, right? Sinusitis, put their feet in hot water. Bursitis, you name it. Every one of your inflammations, you put the person's feet in hot water. Keep them there for 30 minutes. What I would prefer, if you can do it, is to put the person's chair up against the tub, put a bucket, 5-gallon pail with this hot water right there, because you want to keep it hot the whole time. You don't want, if you're doing it in this volume of water and you're sitting in the kitchen and you're running back and forth trying to keep it warm all the time, and then what do you do when it gets too full? Then you got to take some out. It's so nice to do it in the tub. You shove up your chair up to the tub, put your feet over the edge, put on the hot. You can let it dribble, keep it hot the whole time, and then you can have cold beside it. So you keep it in there for 30 minutes. Oh boy. All the blood vessels open up. They're all just, at any given time, if you look at your skin right now, the skin is 40% of the blood vessels are open. So if I look at my skin right now, 40% of them are open. If I got them hot, really hot, they get bright colored, right? That means that I can open up 80% of them, right? I can make them 80% of them open. The same thing with my feet. If I got 80% of those blood vessels open, then when I put them in the cold water, they all start doing this. See? If you took the person's feet, you just put them in the hot water and you dried them off, they would stay full of blood, but they would pick up the temperature of the room itself. So this room temperature is running at 68, 70, something like that. So the actual net effect of doing that is chilling. You're going to chill those feet. You're going to chill that person, the exact opposite. The blood is going to leave them and congest whatever was congested again, recongest it, and actually make it even worse because it's going to send more blood there. So what you want to do is after that 30 minutes of hot, you want to put them in the cold for 30 seconds. And what happens is when that happens, the blood vessels start doing this, and they're pumping fresh blood in and pumping the blood back out. And now that you've kept that blood traveling there, and what it does is it begins to slow down eventually, but it does not go back and congest the area that was congested before. See? Headaches. And I think it was Sinai Hospital in upstate New York. Over 95% of all headaches are circulatory problems. 95% are circulatory problems. What does that mean? Put the person's feet in hot water. 95% of them are affected by circulation. Put their feet in hot water. Draw the blood away from the skull to the feet, right? Put a cold cloth on the forehead if you can. And what will happen is you'll relieve that headache. Now, migraine is a little bit different. If you catch it quick enough, you can usually stop it. If it gets to the place where the person is really becoming nauseous, it's a little more difficult. Usually with the migraine, it's these muscles right in here, the insertions, where those muscles insert into the back of the skull. You're going to find that that's tight, and you need to work that as soon as the person starts if you can. Try and get that to be relieved. Not harsh, but try and relieve it. Try to get the circulation in there. What happens is we think of a headache as being inside our brain. It's actually the blood vessels in the skull going back. You don't have pain fibers in the brain. So it's not the brain that's aching. We call it, it's really the skull. It's the circulation going back from the skull. That's where the headache is located. And so if you can get the people feet in hot water or get them to get some massage or something like that to get that circulation going again and get them to relax, find out what they're uptight about, what their work program is, what they're driving themselves at. What are you pushing yourself at? Figure out that really is helpful. Okay? All right. Oh, what's the next one? Cold mitten friction. How many of you have heard of a cold mitten friction? Where's my cloth? Here we go. So I had a lady that came to the guest house. She had had the flu for 4 months. So I said to her, you know what you need to do is you need to do a cold mitten friction. So a cold mitten friction is you take a warm bath. You make sure you're in a warm room. So the bathroom can't have a window open, can't have a draft in it, can't have the door open. You want to have if you have a warm bath and a warm room. So you have a warm bath, dry off thoroughly. Then you have a basin of cold water, cold as you can get, right? You use a face cloth, you dip it in there, wring it out so it doesn't drip, and you rub your arm, right? You rub it like this until it's cold mitten friction. Got it? All right, and then you take a towel and you dry it off thoroughly. Then you do this arm, you dry it off thoroughly. Then you do your chest, then you do your back, then you do your legs. Do your legs, then you do your back, then you do your chest, till you've done every part that you can reach. Okay, so I told her that. And I asked her, she'd been at the guest house, I said, so how did it go with the cold mitten friction? She said, well, I did a hot and cold shower. So is a hot and cold shower the same as a cold mitten friction? Is it the same? When you're in a shower, what part of your body is getting wet? Whatever is under the shower, right? But not with friction, right? It's just, okay? Now in your skin there are macrophages, specific white blood cells that your body really needs for fighting disease. They're very important. They have an important part in the immune system itself. They are large cells that get stuck in your skin. And so when you use a cold mitten friction, you're bringing your blood past it, right? That's what you're doing. Oh, hot and cold shower is okay, but it's not a cold mitten friction. Okay, so the next day I asked her, how are you doing? Well, she said, I listened to you. I took a face cloth, and I got hot, and then I got cold, and after I got cold, I rubbed my skin with a face cloth. Is that a cold mitten friction, as I described it to you? No, it's not, because you see, what I want that person to do is rub their skin, right? And then dry it thoroughly. Why? That part, dry it thoroughly. So it doesn't evaporate, because as soon as you evaporate it, it's kind of like taking your feet and put them in hot water and then not putting it in cold. Are you with me? You did the cold mitten part of it, but then you didn't dry it. So it's evaporating. So you're undoing what you did. You want to follow? It's not difficult, but it works if you do it, right? She got over her flu. She started doing cold mitten frictions, right? Cold mitten frictions really increases your white blood cell count up to 10%, just a cold mitten friction. If a person's trying to quit coffee, many of our guests that come to our place are drinking coffee. That's what they do. And they come to Silver Hills and they go, oh no, what was I thinking? I came to a place where they don't serve coffee. It's like, The first 3 days, they got a massive headache, and then they're okay. And amazing, absolutely amazing that you see the look in their circulation after they get off it. They've been off it for a few days. It really makes a huge difference. So, but anyway, okay. So if you're going off coffee, trying to quit coffee, cold mitten friction really helps, because you start to normalize your circulation again and get it back to what it belongs, the way it belongs, okay? All right, warm socks. Okay, here's warm socks. Okay, so I don't have a hot foot bath. I don't have time. I don't have that. So what I do is I go into the bathroom. I take a pair of cotton socks. I dip them in cold water, wring them out so they don't drip, put them on my foot, and then over top of it I put a wool sock, okay? This is called a heating compress. Remember I gave you a heating compress for your neck, the one for your chest? No matter where you put it, it's the same thing. This is called a heating compress for the feet. So I put a cotton sock that's wet and cold on my foot, and over top of it I put a wool sock, and I do that for both feet, and I go to bed. And what it's going to do, remember I said upper respiratory, what we've done quite often when we got congestion anywhere in the body, the place that's given up the blood is your feet. Well, what I'm doing is I put on a pair of hot socks, or cold socks with a thing, is I bring the congestion away from where it's congested. I bring the blood to my feet and I keep it there overnight, which gives the body a chance. See, when you got to think, when a tissue is congested, the white blood cells can't do their job. They can't do their job. They get in there and everything is slowed down. And so that, the bad guys are winning the war. That's really what's happening. The bacteria or viral or whatever it is like that, it's winning the war because you can't get your white blood cells in there. And so you want to get the blood away from that area so you can bring in fresh white blood cells, get away the debris, and you can start the healing process. See, that's what you're really after. So that's what that is. Oh, here's one. I got to show you this one. This is fabulous. Hello? Send me? What's that? Oh, okay. All right, here we go. This is one for the books right here. Here we go. So I have here an onion. All right? And I take the onion and I chop it fine. I don't need the whole onion for this. A quarter of the onion would be fine. Chop it up fine on a chopping board. I don't have a chopping board here, plus I don't want to release the smell in here. Nobody will even get near us. But anyway, so you chop up fine, all right? Then you take a piece of cotton cloth. Where is it here? Here we go. There we go. So here we got a piece of cotton cloth like that. And you put the onion in the center of it, then you fold it like this. You can't see it, but I'll show you. I'm folding it square, so I'm keeping the onion folded inside. See, there it is, folded inside. This is all folded on the back, but the onion is right against there. You take that, put it against the bottom of your foot. All right? Now, you want to keep it there. I think I have something here I can keep it with. Maybe. Let's see. Anyway, it was a good idea until I couldn't do anything with it. Here we go. So there you are. That's what you want. See that? Saran wrap. You can take the saran wrap and you can keep it in place by wrapping that around your foot. See? So that'll keep it in place. So you keep this against the bottom of your foot, and you want the part where the onion is just one surface, where it's all folded. You don't want that part. You want this part against your foot. You saran wrap it in place, all right? Then you pull on a nice fitting sock, well-fitting sock, all right? And then, if you want to stay married, you put your foot in a plastic bag. Otherwise, you're going to smell nothing but onions all night long. Your partner is going to say, that's it. That's over, So you put this on, and you pull it up, and you can even put a bit of tape around the top of it, all right? Keep that in place. That is onions. Now, I can tell you, if you have not tried this, have never tried this, I would recommend everyone in this room try this without having a sinusitis. Just try it. Because if you have somewhere in your body that seems to be at war, this is a tremendous, this will actually, I don't know why. This used to be, if you look it up historically, this was the method before antibiotics that we used to use for pneumonia right here. Onions on the bottom of your feet. Amazing, see? So if you know this, you can use it. I mean, you just try it yourself. Tonight, I like to experiment. So just try it on your own feet, put it on the bottom of your feet, and you'll go like, wow, can't believe what I felt like last night. I had a pain over here. I've been having this pain forever, and it seems like it's gone. Like, what happened? Use it, okay? So try the onion. Again, I use just a piece of cotton cloth. You see this? Just cut out an old sheet or something, and I've folded it like this, and like this, and like that. So I folded the onion inside, then I wrapped the saran wrap around the foot to hold it in place. Saran sticks to itself, so it holds it long enough to get the sock on. And then, like I said, to keep your marriage together, get it covered up. Because I can tell you what, it'll fill the room with onion, and the other person won't be able to sleep, which won't be any fun. Okay? All right, let's see if there's any more on this treatment part of it here. Let's go. Yes, you do. Thank you. Yes, 2 feet. I have 2 socks here. I only brought one of these, but you do it on both feet. Yep. Okay? Yes, in the arch. Thank you. Right in the arch area. That's exactly it. Okay? Okay. Now, here's where the fun begins. You see, one of the first things that you'll learn that we were talking about here is all these really neat treatments, right? Here we go. And so you have a person that's got a problem, and you say, okay, we're going to work on that. But ultimately, your direction in working with the person is to get to their lifestyle, because that's where the problem is. The majority of the problem, it's in their lifestyle, something in their lifestyle that's causing the problem. You see, in 1822, we were eating 2 teaspoons of sugar a day, and you can see what happens 1870, 11, 1905. We're up at the year 2000, up to 42, and who knows where we are now at 2024. You know, we could be even higher than that, but 42 teaspoons of sugar a day. Well, what does that mean? Well, here's what it means. Well, first of all, here's the different kinds of things that are sugar. You have Jell-O is 83%, Coffee Mate is 65%, all brand cereal is 21% sugar. If you're buying food, prepared food, you're getting sugar, almost for sure. You know, so unless you're making it yourself, you're getting excess sugar. And you can see here, I asked my guests, how many teaspoons of sugar do you think Canadians are eating every day? And many people will say 12, 14. And I'll say, well, you know, 1 can of pop has 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar, 1 can of pop. And all of a sudden they change their mind. They say, well, maybe there's 30. Because they know people are drinking 2 or 3 cans of pop a day, right? And so there's where your sugar content is coming up. You can see right there. There's a lot of different names for it. You know, so you have maltose, lactose, fructose, dextrose, galactose, corn syrup, invert sugar, corn sweeteners, confectionery sugar, mannitol, all different kinds of sugars. They're all sugars. Many manufacturers will use more than one kind of sugar. You know why? Because then they don't have to put it as the first ingredient. So they can put wheat as the first ingredient, or flour as the first ingredient, and then they'll put 3 different kinds of sugar, but actually if you were to only put 1 sugar in there, it would be the first ingredient. It's just a trick that the manufacturer uses, so they use a variety of them, but they're all sugars. And here's the problem, okay? So if your ability to fight disease is affected by sugar, okay? So if you had no sugar at all, and you had a petri dish of white blood cells and bacteria in the petri dish, a white blood cell could kill 14 bacteria before it was done itself, if there's no sugar in the dish. But if you started adding sugar to the dish, so you got up to 24 teaspoons of sugar in the dish, then it's 1 to 1. And you can see what's happening to the person's immune system. It's not, so here I am, okay, I'm going to help this person, and I've got their feet in hot water, and so I'm going to be chatting with them. You know, they got 30 minutes of it being in hot water. They're going to be sitting here for the hot foot bath, and I'm going to be starting to talk to them. Oh, so what's your favorite food? You know, what do you have before breakfast? Oh, you have 2 cups of coffee. Okay, so how much sugar do you put in your coffee? And then what do you have for breakfast cereal? What's your lunch? What's your favorite treat? We're going to talk to them to find out their lifestyle, because if they're putting their feet in hot water and you're helping to, you know, remove the congestion, it's not going to be effective for very long if they're carrying on with the lifestyle. So you're going to have to address that lifestyle issue, and that's the piece of the puzzle that this church has. I mean, it's just this is the part that it's a rewarding work to work with people when you know it. Not by, I like what the author of this whole thing, not with an outright raid on the person. So you're not going to just jump on them with both feet and say, how could you be so stupid, you know, because that's not going to help them. They're not going to, you know, you're going to be moving them in the right direction, but you're going to gain their confidence, win their friendship, and then maybe even say, hey, I got a recipe you could try that would do this, or, you know, come on over and eat at my place, or let's, you know, have more time. You're going to gain their confidence so that you can help them make transitions. You're not going to be running at them full bore and you know, shocking them to half to death. Okay, but that you can see the problem. All right, now here's another problem. Dr. Sang, how many have heard of Sang Lee? Anybody heard of Sang Lee? He used to be at Weimar for years. I went out lecturing many times. I'd be lecturing, and then he'd be lecturing, and so I'd listen to his lectures. He was an allergist. That was his specialty. He was an allergist, right? And this is what he said, and I thought this was fantastic. Sagley recommends no milk or milk products for allergies and respiratory infections. So if a person has reoccurring respiratory infections or allergies, and he's an allergist, and he said allergy doesn't even have to be here. It can be anywhere else in the body. He says, get rid of the milk. Get the person off their milk. Quit drinking milk. Another thing that I want to share with you, and this is an important thing for us in the Lower Mainland, okay? Because you have to realize that milk drinking, where did it start? I mean, mostly, where did it come from? For us, it came from Europe. Europeans were drinking milk. Caribbean, no milk. Asia, very little milk, hardly any milk. Lots of places where they never had exposure to milk. Those people that came from those areas, most of them cannot digest milk. Cause nothing but trouble for them. And they have all kinds of health problems. And they're watching their co-workers gulping down 3 glasses of milk a day, and they're saying, I drink half a glass of milk and I got a knot in my stomach, it won't go away. Well, the reason is because what happened, it's the same thing with alcohol. If you go to the areas where drinking wine started, the Mediterranean, the toleration for wine is higher there than it is Ireland. The reason is very simple, because they can't make wine in Ireland. It's very difficult to make wine in Ireland, and so the population didn't get weeded out. We have the same problem with First Nations here in our country. The lack of exposure. The more you expose a population to something, even if it's untoward, the stronger people live, and their offspring live, and the ones that aren't strong, they finally die off. So you have to be careful with people that are, they come to you and they're having an upper respiratory problem. Think right away, well, where are you from? What was your background? What was your ethnicity? What was your family? What was their habit? And some people shouldn't be drinking milk at all. I mean, I would recommend most people get away from it, but some people really can't even tolerate it at all. You need to stay away from it, and because it's not in their ethnicity at all, okay? All right, now we're going to jump in. What time is it? How much longer do we have? We have another few minutes? Yeah? Okay, now we're going to have some fun. Here we go. You have 4 ways to get rid of poison in your body. What are they? What are the 4 ways you have of getting rid of poison? I got 1, skin, okay? That's one way. Help me out. Wake up, everybody. What's the other one? Okay, lungs, skin, bowels, good. And what's the other one? I can't hear it. Kidneys, oh, good. Kidneys, okay. So you have 4 ways to get rid of poison out of your body. What are they again? Skin, lungs, bowels, and kidneys. What does the body use at every one of those excretory organs as the vehicle to get rid of the poison? What does it use? What does it use? Water? In the lungs? In the lungs? One of the lungs' vital functions is to transport carbon dioxide from the air sacs to the bronchial passages from which it is exhaled, and oxygen from outside the body into the air sacs. So it has this gaseous exchange. This can only be done by what? Dissolving these gases in a liquid medium. The liquid that does that is water. If you're driving along in a bus, school bus when you were kids, and it was freezing outside, and you go on the glass, and push your hand on there, and then put the little toes on there. We used to drive baby feet right across the whole length of the school bus. Looked like a baby was running along there, Or you're driving in a VW years ago, and somebody was breathing, and you couldn't see where you're going. You said, stop breathing. Every time you breathe out water. Every breath that you breathe out water. I gave this lecture to a high school in Vernon. Had a 14, 15-year-old kid sitting right in front of me, right here. And he blurted out, when I got partway through this lecture, you know what he said? I don't drink any water. None. Doesn't drink water. Wow. Body's about 70%, your body is 70% water. That's what it is. He's not getting an oil change. You know what I mean? Like he's not getting that water that's absolutely essential for cleansing, for getting rid of the poisons out of the body. Okay? Let's take a look at the next one. The solvent that does this, that's the lungs, okay? Now the skin, let's do that one. Here's a good one. If you took and skinned somebody, you'd have 19.6 square feet of skin, approximately, laid out on the ground. But if you included the respiratory ducts, you can't even see them, but there's millions of them in your skin. If you included that respiratory duct in the skin itself, you stretched them all out flat, you'd have 10,000 square feet of skin. 19.6 square feet to 10,000. This huge volume. Somebody says the skin is the largest organ of your body. Guess what? They're right. And when you get to sweat, what happens? You start getting a person in a steam room or hot tub or whatever it's like that. Their body opens up those pores and out comes the moisture. And you know what it's carrying out of the body? It carries away poison. That's what it's doing. It's taking it away. It's carrying it out. It's taking it out of the blood and putting it right out on the surface of the skin, and it's using you to cool it down. I mean, this is you got to stand back and think there must be a creator involved in this. You got to think of that, because what you're doing is you're getting rid of the stuff that you don't need. You're putting it out on the surface of the skin, and it's evaporating and cooling you down. And now that makes great sense when it's hot. The worst thing could be if it went inside and made you sick. That's what it would do. Otherwise, it just comes out on the surface of your skin. Okay, so your largest organ of your body, it's using your moisture to carry away the heat and get rid of the poison. All right, so here we have constipation. We have the bowel. What's the primary function of the bowel? If your person's constipated, what's the problem? Not enough fiber, okay? Well, why fiber? What does fiber do? What does fiber do? So it's like a broom. Fiber hangs on to water. That's what it does. You can't get the water out of the fiber. That's the beautiful thing about fiber. You put bran in a water, and it absorbs it. It absorbs it, and it gets wet, and it holds onto it. When it comes to the main purpose of the bowel is to reabsorb water, right? If your bowel is not working right, what do we get? If the bowel is sick, it's not working right, what do we call that? What's that? If your bowel is not working right, you have diarrhea. That's a sick bowel. Everything coming out. If the bowel is working right, you get constipation, because its main job is to reabsorb water. You use 1.5 gallons of digestive fluid in your digestion, in your digestive tract. You use 1 gallon in the process of digestion. Every day you use 1.5 gallons of water, and you got to reabsorb that. Otherwise, you're going to be just sitting at the fountain drinking all the time. And so you have to reabsorb it. That's what the bowel's job is, to reabsorb the water. And if you haven't been eating food or drinking enough water, when it reabsorbs it, then you get constipation, right? So it says here, drink adequate water. What does it mean, practice regularity? What are we talking about there? I got to go to work. I got no time. I don't have to go. I can't go to the bathroom. I don't have time. I'll wait till I get home. What does the bowel do all day? Absorbs water. At the end of the day, I better stop at the health food store and get some dynamite. Like, this is not going anywhere. It's not. See what I'm saying? Practice regularity. Make sure that your digestion, your sleep, your bowels, they work on a schedule. That's the way they work. We get everything all over them. We have gotten to the place in our society where it doesn't matter when you eat, doesn't matter when you sleep, it doesn't matter when you go to the bathroom. Nothing matters. You're just bumbling along. I don't know why I'm sick. People come to the guest house. I mean, they're all over. They don't have a regular time to eat. They don't have a regular time to sleep. They don't have a regular time to go to the bathroom, drink water. Nothing is regular. All over the map. Okay? All right, and then why exercise daily? What's that all about? Well, exercise, the bowel springboards off the abdominal muscles. If the abdominal muscles are well formed, you can bear down and have an evacuation from the bowel. And if their muscles are weak and distended, it's hard to evacuate the bowel. Are you with me? So being physical exercise helps that whole process. Being healthy and fit, we call it being fit, okay? All right, and the last one, my favorite one, is this one right here. Because the reason why I like this is because I have 1 million of these at each one of my kidneys. See, they're called nephrons, and you have 1 million in each kidney. I don't have 1 million of anything else, but I have 1 million nephrons. If you took the convoluted tubule and laid it end for end, I think you'd have a pipeline that was 40 miles long when you can't see it. Can you believe that there's something that long inside your kidney? You took the nephrons and you put them end for end, you'd have a pipeline that was 40 miles long, but you can't see it. Isn't that phenomenal? And what happens is the liquid portion of the blood, you'll see that little red bulb there, the liquid portion of the blood is captured from the blood and it goes through what's called the convoluted tubule, and now the blood goes back and forth over top of the convoluted tubule, and with the process simple osmosis, it draws back the water that it needs to function in the blood, and the waste goes out through the tubule and into the bladder. Isn't that fantastic? Just think how it separates the water from the blood, and then it reabsorbs the water that it needs. And Dr. Shyrock says, why would the body reabsorb any of the waste material back into the blood? And he says, if you have not been drinking enough water to make the urine relatively dilute, you will absorb more waste in the kidney. And when you reabsorb it, you cause damage to the lining of the nephron. And the simple problem is you're not drinking enough water. See? We're running the guest house. And I think this was the fourth lady that came to the guest house. Fourth lady that we dealt with. And she walked in, her nose was plugged, her eustachian tubes were plugged, her throat was plugged, she had hard to talk, and she says, I hate drinking water. That was what she said. When she walked through the door of the guest house, the first thing she said was, I hate drinking water. All plugged up in her nose, all plugged up in her throat, mucus in her throat, mucus in her nose. I hate drinking water. Okay. How much water do we need? Let's take a look. Nothing right away. No, I'll tell you one even better. First lady, Dr. He. I don't know if anybody here knows Dr. He. Some of you might know him. Dr. He sent us our first guest. The lady walked through the door. This lady had terminal cancer. I wrestled her suitcase through the door for her. And while I was wrestling the suitcase through the door, this is what came out of her mouth. I hate exercise. And I said, boy, did you come to the right place. Because you're going to love it when we're done with you. But I hate exercise. That was exactly what came out of her mouth as I was putting her suitcase inside our house. I hate exercise. Okay, here we go. So the lungs use a cup. These are 8-ounce glasses. Skin, 2 cups. Bowels, 1 cup. Kidneys, 6 cups. That means you need 10 cups a day. We get 5 from our food. All of your food has water in it. So you need a minimum of 5 glasses of water a day. We would say that you need a minimum of 6 to 8 glasses, what we would recommend. Now, here's what I tell people to do. And I don't know if anybody in this room is already doing this. If you're not doing this, I'm going to make a recommendation for you. If you're not drinking water before breakfast, drink 2 glasses of water every morning before breakfast for the next 10 days. Make yourself a commitment. If you're not doing this, drink 2 glasses of water every morning for the next 10 days before breakfast, okay? Now, some people have a hard time drinking cold water, and I don't blame them. That's what we do. We warm it up, and we drink it warm. It's a lot easier in the morning. Every rest of the day, I like ice-cold water, but not before breakfast. If I drink ice-cold water before breakfast, I just want to go to bed, lay in a fetal position, and warm my stomach up. So drink it warm, but if you're not doing this as a habit, if you do it for 10 days, I will almost make you a guarantee you will never stop doing it for the rest of your life. You'll see such a change in your health, your bowels, everything will be so much better. 2 glasses of water before breakfast every morning for the next 10 days. I tell that to our coffee drinkers, and they can get off coffee without any trouble because now they're getting hydrated with something that's even better than coffee, and it really, really does help them, okay? So that's what so if we're talking to a person and they come to us and they have sinusitis, we have a number of these things that we can use. But ultimately what we want to do is we want to get to the place where we're moving their lifestyle to where they're living a healthier lifestyle. We want to move them away from the sugar, away from the dairy, away from the things that are causing the problem, because otherwise it could be just reoccurring, right? And what you really want to do is begin to teach them to take care of themselves. And once they start to learn, and the simplest thing is just water. It's the simplest thing. Sometimes we start with the diet. The diet's a tough one. You know, I tell our ladies in the kitchen, I'm not going to talk to them about diet at all for the first 3 days. Not one word about food. Just kill them with the best food you can give them for 3 days. Just give them the best tasting food you've ever talked about, ever seen. Best vegan food you've ever tasted. Because once they've had 3 days of it, they're already convinced that they love to live this way. I've had people tell me, if I could eat this every day, I'd live this way. See? Then I can start talking to them about what some of the changes they need to make in their diet. I could talk to people about water right away. I could talk to them about exercise right away. I went to a lecture series over in Alberta, and it was right when mad cow disease was just taking off, and we were at an Adventist camp there, and 90% of the people that were attending were farmers. And the doctor that spoke ahead of me decided to talk about mad cow disease. And I mean, he almost got hung. I was watching these farmers were going to kill him. So I decided to talk about exercise because I knew every one of the farmers didn't think their wife was exercising enough. So I thought at least I'd be on their side. Talk about something. Talk to people about something that they can get a hold of and do something about first. Win their confidence. Jesus won their confidence, then he bade them follow me, right? Win their confidence. Don't start off with something that's impossible. Don't give them a hill that's too high to climb. Give them something they can do. Water is something that everyone can try, and it's really, really important, okay? All right, let's take a break. Thank you for your time.